Okay, in the last unit you started learning about linear functions and quadratic functions. And those functions are actually called polynomials. And so we're going to look at higher order polynomials in this unit. And a polynomial is any function where you have numbers times powers of x and they can be added or subtracted together. And there are some really nice things about polynomials. Their graphs are nice and what we call smooth or continuous, meaning there's no gaps or holes or anything like that. So in general, their graph might look like something like this. Their domain is going to be all real numbers, and then sometimes their range will be all real numbers, and sometimes, for example, like a quadratic, it might have a different range. So we're going to begin by learning about some of the vocabulary that goes along with polynomials. So if we have this polynomial, and just to kind of give you a reference, let me write out, let's say it's something like 5x cubed plus 2x squared plus x minus 1. Okay, so the numbers in front of the x's, we call those coefficients. We put them in descending order of the exponents of the x when we can. Now that highest exponent, that's what we call our n, and that's our degree. So the highest one is always the degree. The leading coefficient is the number that's in front of the term with the highest degree. So that would be your leading coefficient. The leading term is that whole term. It's the coefficient and the x term. Okay, so let's just fill in this chart with some examples. So if we want a constant function is one that just is like f of x equals a number, just one number, no x's. So something like f of x equals 5. And that's going to graph as a horizontal line. And we say that the degree of a constant function is 0. Now a linear function, we talked all about these in the last unit, would be something like mx plus b. So we could have something like 3x minus 2. And this will graph as another line, one that's not horizontal. And here the highest exponent on the x would be a 1. So they're degree 1 polynomials. Okay, we also talked about quadratics in the last section. So that would be something like, let's call it h of x equals, remember, ax squared plus bx plus c. So we could have something like 3x squared minus 7x plus 2. And do you remember what those graph as? Those are parabolas. And the highest exponent there is 2. Okay, you're probably seeing a pattern. A cubic function would be one where the highest exponent is 3. So we could have something like f of x equals x cubed. And we don't have to have all the other terms. We could do x cubed minus 1. Okay, or it could have the other x powers too. So it has degree 3. We don't really have a special name for that one. And a quartic will be one that has a 4th degree term. So we could have something like x to the 4th plus 3x cubed minus x plus 12. Okay, but the important thing about a quartic is that it's a degree 4 polynomial. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at these polynomials and just get some practice of what you're going to do in the lab. So we're going to classify the polynomial by type, whether it's constant, linear, quadratic, cubic, or quartic. We'll talk about the leading term, the leading coefficient, and the degree. Okay, so this first one is f of x equals x cubed minus 5x squared plus 6x minus 8. Well, this has a degree 3. Okay, we know it's degree 3. The highest exponent is 3. So we call this a cubic polynomial. Okay, the leading term will be the whole first term, so that would be x cubed. And even though we don't write it, there's really like a 1 in front of there, so the leading coefficient would be a 1. Okay, let's look at the next one. G of x, we have negative 2x to the 4th plus 3x squared minus 4. Okay, so if we look at that first term, the highest power is 4, so that's going to be the degree. And the degree 4 polynomial is called a quartic. Okay, the leading term here will be the negative 2x to the 4th, that whole first term. And the leading coefficient is just the number out in front of there, 2, negative 2. Okay, so that's kind of the basics of polynomials and some of the terms that go along with them.